We're moving fast forward to the next panel. Or I could also call it kind of a fireside. It's about staking. What is at stake? Institutional demand is undeniable for staking, but how are the regulatory frameworks and what are the issues and problems? So this is what we're going to explore, and I'm really, really happy to welcome as a moderator Jill Nussbaumer. She works as compliance officer for SIX, but with her other hat on, she is member of the cantonal parliament of Zug, right? The canton Zug, where we are in, and please welcome on stage, and also your speakers. Put your hands together, please.
Please have a seat here. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here tonight because this is my home country, this is my hometown, and now I get to talk to the industry leaders of the Crypto Valley, and they can tell me as a politician what we are supposed to do in legislation, so that's a great opportunity. I'm so pleased to have Eva Lawrence here. She's head of EMEA at Figment, and Figment offers non-custodial staking mostly to clients like asset managers, custodian, and also hedge funds. So give it up for Eva. Thank you. Also here tonight we have Pavel Jakovlev. He's head of product innovation and growth at AMINA Bank, which is also based in Zug. And they offer custodial staking mostly to their institutional investors. So give it up for Pavel, please. So let's start with the very basics. We all know that staking is validating transactions and creating blocks. But it's also a very important investment strategy, as staking yield is often significantly higher than interest rates. So Eva, why is staking important, both for the ecosystem and also for your institutional clients?
Yeah, I would say the first thing to highlight is staking rewards are not an investment product, and rewards are not yield. But they are a way of participating in a network to secure it and to earn returns. I think that's really important because staking sometimes gets confused with lending, two very different products, as we've seen from recent SEC guidance. We'll talk about that later. But the way to think of staking is as close as you are going to get to a risk-free rate. So if assets that you already hold, you want to earn a return, this is the closest you're going to get to a risk-free rate on your assets. We see a lot of asset owners use it as a way to hedge against price volatility. Now, it's not a clean delta hedge, but again, it is something that both retail, institutional, asset managers, the whole broad spectrum of crypto holders look at as a way of earning a return. I think it's also very important because it's something that spans the crypto ecosystem. So whether you're a bank, whether you're a hedge fund, whether you're an asset manager, a retail investor, these are all people and institutions that are interested in staking. Whereas in other products, you might see a small subset of the market that's interested in them. This is something that spans the ecosystem.
So how about your clients? Do they see it more as an investment opportunity or as an opportunity to participate in the network?
I'd say there's the definite investment opportunity that's there. We have a lot of interest in Ethereum, especially Ethereum hasn't been performing that great this season from what it seems, so it's pretty obvious move for investors to commit their Ethereum to staking. But then if we look more on the technology level, on the actual infrastructure level, we're also together with our staking partners, we're also making the network more secure, right? The greater the amount of validators, the more secure the network is. I guess I'm telling this to the people who are initiated in how things work, but yeah, it's contribution to the network. It's increasing the validator count. It's increasing the validator stake that's delegated to the validators. So again, it's making sure that there is a much more robust infrastructure that's providing rails for transactions to happen, and hopefully much more in the future.
Yeah. So Eva, you just mentioned the SEC statement. providing clarity on staking offerings, and especially how the federal securities laws apply to crypto and staking. What is your comment on that? And do you think that Europe is now lacking behind the US that they published this statement?
Yes, so I'm sure everyone in the room is aware that there was positive guidance from Hester Peirce out of the SEC in the US. Just this week, we've seen that there's been clarification that staking is not investment, right? Doesn't create a security. So that is something that we have been waiting on, and everyone within the industry has been hoping would come soon. Us, along with many others, have been speaking with the SEC to educate them on staking and why staking a transaction, a delegated proof of stake, does not create a securities contract. So to have that vocalized by the SEC is great, but I think what is more important here is that the SEC is open and is listening. They're no longer regulating by enforcement. They're actually putting out guidance to guide the industry. Now, we've seen the SEC open their doors to discussions with industry leaders like Figment and others from custody, trading, to understand how staking fits into the broader crypto ecosystem. What I'm concerned with is that we're not seeing European regulators open their doors in similar ways. They have some understanding of what staking is, what liquid staking is, what restaking is even. That's pretty limited, but what I'm concerned about is we're not seeing the regulators, and I'm including the UK FCA here, open their doors in the same way to understand these products and offerings. So what I don't want to see is Europe get left behind as we see guidance from the SEC and not as much from the European regulators. So it would be great to see even more open dialogue, just for education to begin with, from the European counterparts.
Yeah. And you have quite some experience with education, with FINMA, with dialogue with FINMA, especially when they published their guideline in 2023 on staking. How does this work, the dialogue with the authority, and how approachable are they in Switzerland?
Right. So maybe to add to what Eva was saying, I think the guidance that we see from the SEC, it's that, right? It's guidance. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Yet at the same time, it's still not policy. So I think we're a tiny little bit away from the actual policy making in the US. However, also the approach to policy in the US is slightly different. The policy is there in case there is some type of litigation. So, and we have these absolutely insane conversations with US startups where we just, have the back of our head, kind of the hairs at the back of our head stand up, where we go, are you guys sure this is legal? They go, yeah, we should be fine. And then you start digging into the policy, and then you're realizing that there's certain, parameters that are there. And then up until the point that there's no actual litigation, everything seems to be quite okay. It's a stark contrast to Europe, and it's definitely a stark contrast to Switzerland. So Europe, again, Mika talked over and over in this forum and many others. I think the fact that there isn't proper guidance on staking is deliberate. I think it's coming, most probably. There's also a pan-European mobilization of lobbying efforts through the entities like CCI and some of the others. So we'll definitely see something. That's our estimation, right? It feels like let's get the groundwork properly regulated with Mika, and then let's move on to staking in some of the other products, and then create proper boundaries around that. The Swiss regulator here, I would say, excels the most, because staking guidance has been around for years now. We're in active discussions constantly in terms of different types of protocols. So there is an in-depth knowledge and understanding of how things work. Specifically for us, the next big, and I think that's more a technological requirement to satisfy the regulator here, is how can we access some of these opportunities that the previous panel has been discussing, right? In a safe, regulated environment, so our customers would be able to participate, right? Have that DeFi native opportunities, so to say, in safe, segregated, de-risked environment, right? So that's a challenge that we pose to all of our service providers and partners with whom we work on, the staking side of things, on the custody side of things, and protocol level, because there's obviously our requirements and our diligence and our parameters that we have to implement, and then there's obviously the regulatory demand, so to say, right, for these things to work properly.
You also have the benefit here of the support of the Swiss Blockchain Federation. So I think 2 weeks ago now, they published another paper on staking. Again, like, this is not legislation, but this is guidance that I'm sure will be put in front of FINMA. And all of that is helpful as long as the right people are being spoken to understand the nuances around the different types of staking in particular.
So staying at the topic of FINMA, they also are distinguishing between segregated and pooled staking solution. There are different regulatory requirements. How do you see the demand for segregated staking opportunities, and also do you think the licensing requirement as they are right now in Switzerland are justified, or should they give a bit more leeway in there?
So I think that first we need to do a quick explanation on what you mean by segregated and pooled staking. So if you're looking at Ethereum is segregated by nature, by setup, right? You stake 32 ETH and you spin up a validator. So that is essentially your own validator with your ETH. So that is segregated in that way. When you stake to a public validator, if you were to stake 100 Solana to a public validator, that does not pool that 100 Solana with Pavel's 100 Solana that he could stake to the same validator. It's not feasible on Solana for everyone to run their own white label validator. It wouldn't be cost efficient, but additionally your rewards would be significantly decreased because of the stake weighting required to achieve outperformance, shall we say, on Solana. So when we're talking about segregated stake, we're not necessarily talking about staking to a public validator or staking to a white label validator. What we're talking about there generally, when we're talking about segregated, it's normally the segregated accounts within a custodian. So I'd say rather than this being a staking point, it's actually just a custody point. So it's more of one for Pavel than for me. At Figment, we offer non-custodial protocol staking. We never take custody of our clients' assets. And I think whether you want your assets in an omnibus or a segregated setup is more about around the custody, whether or not you're staking those underlying tokens. I don't know what your view on this is.
Yeah, correct. It's exactly that. The ability for us to segregate off-balance sheet customer funds, in this case crypto, and then the ability to custodize it in a segregated environment and then delegate it to the node operator. Things will get slightly more different when we start looking at vaults, locked pools, etc., which is quite prominent in DeFi. This is something that we on the institutional side still don't have. We don't have that experience. We're hoping that through technological advancements and enablement, together with the regulators, we'll be able to achieve that. Most probably, Switzerland, I hope, is going to lead the way in this again, in the same way like it led the way back in 2018 when it issued 2 licenses, one to AMINA, one to Signum. We hope that there's going to be this narrative, or at least what we're pushing for, is Swiss bank, Swiss custodian, Swiss node, and then within that node you'd be able to stake, you'd be able to create vaults. I'm hoping that we'll be able to participate in Lido institutional at some point, hopefully in the future. So there's a lot of promising developments, and we're quite confident that the regulators are listening.
Yeah. And also, you holding a banking license, you are able probably to provide most of those things then in the future. That's great. So also a very recent development is that 1 month ago, the Pectra upgrade went live on Ethereum. And one of the primary changes is that maximum validator staking limit was increased substantially. So Eva, what do you think are the benefits of the recent upgrade for your customers?
Yeah, so I think the first one that you pointed out, I would say, is a key one, right? Easier to have larger, more consolidated validators, easier to exit, withdraw from those validators. But I think it's important with Pectra to highlight that these benefits and these changes are optional. So it's more of an opt-in if delegators choose. So for a lot of stakers, Pectra won't actually change anything. It will still be business as usual for them. But it's great to see increased optionality on creating and exiting validators that is improving the sustainability and the enhancement of the network overall. So positive overall, but I think it's important to keep in mind that it's not something that impacts everyone. For some, it won't change anything.
You're more on the it doesn't change anything side, Pavel?
It's not about that it doesn't change, right? If you zoom out, I think Ethereum is on a very interesting trajectory from the technological development standpoint, right? It's clear, and we've heard it during the DEF CON at the end of last year, Ethereum 3.0, everything's going towards zero knowledge. I'm a big believer in the benefits that technology will bring, both to DeFi opportunities and also towards the institutional participants in crypto. So clearly, as you see and you zoom out a tiny little bit and you see, okay, what is Pectra? Two types of different upgrades, consensus level, application level. Then you're seeing that slowly, there is almost like a upgrade level of rolling out or preparing for whatever the ZK upgrade is going to be. You can see that with, as Eva said, right, it's optionality in terms of whether you want to participate or not. We're seeing the groundwork being laid for the Verkle trees, which will compress proofs, hopefully, and then make things more efficient. The ability for the network to be more resilient at greater speeds with slashing. I think it's now instead of 1/32, 1/4096 or something like this. So again, Ethereum is gearing up for faster execution time, more capacity, more load, faster throughputs. So whenever that happens, hopefully by 2030, we'll be ready. But these are kind of incremental upgrades that we're seeing.
It's the same with any technology, right? The best upgrades and the best improvements are the ones that the underlying end user doesn't feel. Yeah. But overall, over time, the improvement of the technology grows, but the end user doesn't feel it, doesn't impact them significantly.
Like it happened with Shanghai.
So I'm already at my final question before I give the mic to the audience and see if you have any question for our industry leaders. So now being here as a legislative deputy, are there any specific policy changes when it comes to crypto you would like to see in Switzerland or in Europe, or just some other mechanism the authorities would follow in the future here?
Anything that we say is automatically going to be put forward for a policy change, right? Considering your involvement.
Parliament works like that. You can hand in a proposal and then government will put it out and say no. But yeah, we can try.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I think continuing to focus on on education and understanding the differences. I think there is still some work to be done on understanding how liquid staking and restaking fits into the whole overall ecosystem. I think that it is lacking overall. But let's start with the basics. I think that it would be good to continue to see Switzerland take an active role in providing guidance around staking. I think we've seen the advancement of the US. We talked about it at the beginning. Europe, they have guidelines around CASPs and VASPs, but that's on the custody piece, right? Not staking. They're kind of coming up close behind if we're thinking of this as a relay race. And then we've got the UK, still putting on their trainers, sat at home. So I think leading by example in Switzerland and focusing on these topics is key for me, because that does impact education across Europe. Focus on staking and restaking and how that fits in, and provide some guidance there. And then I think also look into clearer understanding of MEV relays and MEV clients. And the importance of having compliant MEV relays. So I think that would be another area for the regulators to consider putting some policy and some guidance around.
Yeah, MEV is definitely a big topic, which I think we need a whole separate session on.
Shall we?
Yeah, I do wish that more regulators would adopt the Swiss approach, right? Having a conversation and really seeing what type of, we love that the no action letter that the Swiss regulator kept on issuing for different projects, especially in the early stages of development of the crypto valley. I think if we bring it all the way back to 16 and 17, for those of you who have been around, you remember the no action letters, and that by that the regulator was also learning how far technology can go, how far the folks deving it would be able to push it forward. And that, I think, is a very important instrument in really having this technology innovation versus policy discussion, as opposed to what we saw in the US in the past 4 years, which was quite unfortunate, and now US is trying to catch up on a lot of different aspects. Europe, I think it's also, member states are able to kind of do more than the European Union is proposing. So there's always this minimum harmonization, and then you can potentially do more if you wish to. We're also seeing a pretty robust network of VASPs being developed all over the world. So I think there is also, in a way, collaboration between the different regulators. My wish, if I could, and we talked about it when we had our prep session, I really wish regulators would spend more time understanding technology. There's no way around it. You have to roll up your sleeves and really touch it and feel it. It's the only way that you learn what it is. Understand the intricacies on both maths and physics for some of the protocols involved, as well as the economic elements of it, how things are distributed, how rewards are allocated, what is MEV, I think, again, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, exactly. Because innovation is always going to push regulation, but then you need to understand exactly what is happening. And again, I think, I say it again and again, I think Switzerland is leading the way. I mean, who would have thought that we're talking about liquid staking and what that may look like, right, in Switzerland?
Yeah, very good point from both of you. So I understand expertise is key. So that's probably also a call for some industry players to join the government, even if I know many of you are libertarian and would never do that. But still, if we want expertise in the authorities, there's probably no way around of some people who have first-hand practice to also join policy making. So we have a couple of minutes left. If there are any questions from the audience. Yes, please. I will quickly repeat so the people online also hear. So I understand the question is from the Pectra upgrade, what in Figment's view are the differentiating factor and what is the point?
Around consolidation, right? Yeah, okay. I think, so when you're talking about kind of validator consolidation and the increase of the minimum, we're driven by our customers and what approach that they want to take. We've seen a variety, right? We've seen some clients want to increase the minimum. We've seen some not want to do anything and keep staking 32 ETH or increments of 32 ETH, but we are very much driven by what our customers are requesting. So we work with everyone from hedge fund, asset manager, custodian, exchange, all the way through to a large bank. And so sometimes the the needs and the requirements change depending on the client type, but from us, we've seen some clients want to leave everything as is, and others to make changes. If I had to pick what we've seen more of, I would see in terms of the the max effective balance and the minimum amount to be staked. We've seen more clients not want to change anything at the moment.
Please don't fall.
Someone's been on the beers already.
Yeah. So I think there was another question. Yes, please.
So in places where we are not as lucky as Switzerland, where we have a legislator sitting in a panel with you guys, how do you approach regulators and policymakers to help them understand this new weird topic that is scary and probably bad in their eyes, and it's also extremely complex to understand? How can you break down the complexity and bring it across and bring the positives across?
By pitching the Bitcoin reserve.
How do you approach and educate regulators, right?
I mean, we work very closely with the regulators. So we worked with some of our partners here in Switzerland to provide guidance to FINMA on staking, but we've worked with the SEC, the UK FCA, VARA in the Middle East, MAS in Singapore. And I think the main tactic that we've taken is kind of going in and having a closed door session where they can ask any question that they want to without feeling like a question shows them in a bad light, shall we say. Just an open discussion where they feel free to ask questions, and not that they have to just sit and listen and say nothing because they don't want to appear like they don't understand a particular topic. So having that open forum, but in a closed way, has been key. We also look at putting out research papers as well. So if it's something that's written in a form that the regulators might appeal to the regulators, so we put one out that looked at what's the regulatory treatment of staking in Europe and the UK, but it was written from a legal perspective. It was written with a lawyer in mind. So for some people, it was probably the most boring paper they would ever read. But for regulators, they were like, this is how I like to see materials set out. So I think it's kind of meeting the regulators where they want you to be is important. And I think you highlighted as well with the policy groups, like the Swiss Blockchain Federation, CCI. CCI does some amazing work, Digital Economy Initiative, the Proof of Stake Alliance, which is now part of CCI. All of these groups, I think, do a great job.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, I was obviously joking about the Bitcoin reserve, but at the same time, I also see this as an opportunity. So especially for the offshore jurisdictions, right? The developing countries, I feel, and I think El Salvador is leading the way there, but it's a great initiative also for countries to start maybe hedging some of their risk away from traditional markets into cryptocurrencies. And the most obvious one is Bitcoin. And then if you are a government, most probably it's not necessarily a bad idea to own your own Bitcoin. So that means that you would need to have an infrastructure, right? You need to have custody and all the adjacent things that come that way. And usually through that, you start thinking, okay, if we need to get it in, right? What is the process? So most probably we need to have some type of clarity around that. And then if we get it in as a government, is that at the same time, do we then allow it? How do we allow it? Is it a public tender? Do we allow people to keep it, not spend it, invest in it? Should it be part of some types of savings scheme? So again, but I see this as a net positive. I believe that more and more countries are going to follow lead now that US hopefully is on board, right? Europe is on board. Things are looking pretty interesting in Asia as well. So yeah, hopefully there'll be more countries that would follow the Swiss path.
We hope so, definitely. So unfortunately, we're already out of time. Thank you so much for participating in the panel, and thank you, great audience, for your questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.